I've been playing Pokemon games for almost half my life now. I've traveled through all the different regions, with some of my first playthroughs being seen on YouTube. However, after some thinking, I decided to go back to my roots. Today, I start my Pokemon Adventure from scratch. All previous playthroughs I've done on YouTube are irrelevant to this new journey. Well, except Pokemon Violet, but we'll get to that later. The first game I'm going to play through is the game that started it all for me, Pokemon Black 2. I don't have much of a plan, but I do have some goals set in place. Of course, I want to be Champion of Unova, but that's not all. First, I want to climb and complete the Black Tower. Then, I want to do something that I always wanted to do since I was little. I want to take on the strongest trainers in the world, competing in the Pokémon World Tournament until I can challenge and defeat Red. Finally, I want to see every Pokemon available in Unova, so I can unlock the Nature Preserve and catch the Shiny Haxorus. Alright, let's not waste another second. This is my Pokemon Black 2 adventure. We start off in our hometown of Aspertia City. Our mother is told that a girl in a big green hat is looking to give us a Pokemon so we can start our journey. We decide to head out to meet her and run into our rival Trip. I named him Trip due to naming him the same thing in my original playthrough when I was little. I know a lot of people don't like Trip from the Pokemon anime, but since I started with Unova, I do have a soft spot for him. Regardless, we move forward and eventually find the girl with the big green hat, Bianca. If any of you have seen the anime, or played one of the games in the Unova series, you should be able to remember her. She shows us the Pokemon starter options we have, and I of course choose Oshawott. But I didn't just want any Oshawott. I wanted my Oshawott to be the best it could be. While soft resetting for perfect IVs would take a ridiculously long time, I decided to do a few resets in hopes of at least getting some good IVs, as well as a good nature. I was also somewhat hoping for a shiny one, as I felt going through the game with a shiny Oshawott would be really cool. While our shiny luck wasn't wanting to make itself known this early on, I did manage to get an Oshawott with a naive nature and a surprising 31 in speed. For those of you who don't know, individual values, or IVs, are fixed numerical values that help determine the overall stats of the Pokemon. They range from 0 to 31, so getting any IV at 31 is very helpful. Anyways, this is Shogoro, and he'll be our #1 partner for this adventure. After getting Shogoro, we obtained our Pokedex, and fought our rival and his Snivy that he raised from an egg. We win without too much difficulty, and after a trip to the Pokemon Center, we head out to the first route. It's here that I began a new challenge that wasn't in my original plan. Like I said before, I wanted to make Shogoro into the best Oshawott he could be. So, I decided to look into recommended movesets for Samurai, and began my journey to fully EV train Shogoro before the first gym. This first route was pretty helpful early on for this, as Purloin and Patrat gave EVs in 2 of the stats I was looking for. The EV training did take quite some time to accomplish, and with other routes having higher level Pokemon that still gave me the EVs I was looking for, I decided to head forward while training along the way. I ended up meeting Alder, the former champion of Unova, and my second favorite champion overall. He offers to give us a little training, but we have to take care of some other business first. Heading on to the next route, we captured a Pokemon that became a mainstay member of the team, Pidove. I know a lot of people don't like Unpheasant, but I personally don't get it. The Pidove line is probably one of my favorite early route birds, so welcome Pidge to the team. With that, we head on to Flockacy Ranch, where we meet a few Pokemon for the Dex, EV train, and battle our rival for a second time. With the amount of EV training I've been doing, we were a little over-leveled. Though, I was surprised to see Snivy actually live a hit from Tackle. Still, it didn't take much to finish up the battle in the end. We learned of a Herdier that had gone missing, and so while we train, we attempt to look for it. After plenty of intense EV training, Shogoro managed to gain enough experience to evolve into Dewott. By the time the EV training was done, Shogoro was level 18 and had 84 attack EVs, 180 special attack EVs, and 244 speed EVs. This took hours to accomplish. But honestly, I was pretty satisfied with the outcome. It also meant I could stop neglecting Pidge and actually start training her. We were also able to find Herdier and it's at this point we learned of Team Neoplasma. Apparently they tried to take over Unova 2 years prior, but somebody else foiled those plans. Not really sure who though. At least we were able to return her to here safe and sound though. After that, we head back over to Alder's place, and instead of being trained by a champion, he decides to have us train some of his students. To be honest, I think it would have been really cool for them to still have you fight Alder to some extent early on. Maybe give him a Pokemon we can't catch yet in order to show just how little we've seen until now. Though, maybe they felt having you beat a former champion so early on would be a bit too much, even if they were using a weaker Pokemon for the sake of training. Regardless, once that was over, it was time to head back home to take on our first gym. Before this playthrough began, I decided that when battling the gyms, I would limit myself to using the same amount of Pokemon as them. They always did this in the anime, so I thought it would be a fun challenge. Though, for this first gym, I felt that one of my 2 Pokemon would make this too easy. So I decided to box Shogoro and solo Charon's gym with Pidge. I did train up Pidge beforehand, but I wasn't really sure whether she would be able to handle this on her own. To my surprise though, Pidge was able to beat both Patrat and Lillipup with a few quick attacks. Pidge didn't even take any damage at all. With the basic badge now in hand, my next stop was Verbank City. So with some battling and capturing complete, we entered Verbank, only to be caught in the middle of a parent-child conflict.
Why are you guys doing this out in public?
Roxy's gym is honestly a pretty cool place in my eyes. I can still remember the battle between her and Ash in the anime. It was one of the most unique battles we had gotten. For my adventure, we unfortunately only can do it 2v2. We have to battle her band before we can beat Roxy, but once that's out of the way, we're able to quickly take down Roxy. Pidge is able to take it out coughing with a quick attack and an air cutter before fainting against Whirlipede. Shogoro then comes out and finishes with a Razor Shell followed by a Water Gun. With that, we claim our second badge. We quickly take a trip to Pokestar Studios in order to show Pop Roxy just how much better we are by succeeding at his dream when he couldn't. We then take care of Team Plasma before heading on Pop Roxy's boat to mainland Unova. We arrive in Castelia City, but we almost immediately head over to the next route in order to catch another member of our team. Pidge evolves into Tranquil while we look for it, but then we finally find the third member of our team, Sandile. Let's face it, no matter what ability we get here, Crocodile will be such a good member of our team regardless. You really can't go wrong with Crocodile. They made this thing extremely good. Anyways, we named him Crocky, in all caps, as an homage to my Crocodile I had when I first played the game, and didn't realize I could change from uppercase to lowercase on the in-game keyboard. We then meet Iris, and head into the sewers with Trip, in order to take care of Team Plasma once again. After they leave, we meet Berg, who agrees to head back to his gym soon, before one of my favorite characters shows up. Honestly, Colress is very interesting, from his design to him having one of the best battle themes in the game. But we don't get to fight him just yet. Instead, we head over to take on the bug specialist, Berg. I'm not sure why his gym is full of webs, or why the trainers are clowning around, but it doesn't stop me from fighting the gym leader. Berg starts off with Swadloon, which can't take an air cutter to save its life. Dwebble then comes out, only to be taken down with a few hits from Shogoro. He then sends out his ace Leavanny, and I realize I was actually underleveled for this gym. Oh well, the third badge is ours. With Berg defeated, I decided to catch the fourth member of my team, a Pokemon I've had access to for quite a while now, Eevee. I could have caught this before the gym, but due to which evolution I'll be going with, I felt it would be best to wait a little bit. I got a few of the evolution Pokemon just in case I'm unable to see the evolutions being used by other trainers, and need to evolve one for the Pokedex. Afterwards, I reviewed each one and made my selection based on which one worked best for my intended evolution. Umbreon. I know Sandile is already on the team, so Crocky and Eclipse cause some type overlap, but there's a method behind my madness here, I assure you. Heading back to the same route we found Crocky at, we did some work on the Pokedex, even collecting everything we could within the Desert Resort as well. Once we've seen everything we need in those two areas, we pass through Joint Avenue to reach Nimbasa City. We challenge the Battle Subway bosses in a multi-battle with a girl named Rosa. We beat them and they invite us to challenge the Battle Subway fully. Seeing as I actually didn't add this as a task I wanted to complete, we'll probably only utilize it when needing BP. It is a bit of a shame though, we'll probably never see these characters after this point. We do some more training, Pokédex grinding, and a little bit of subway riding, before we head over to the amusement park that I will forever have mixed feelings about due to the Pikachu and Pichu inflatables that made me firmly believe I would be able to catch these two within the game as a child. Anyways, roller coaster time! Let's go! Yeah, baby! Woo! Wait, this isn't the gym anymore? Yeah, so turns out this was the old gym location. And the new gym location is... What just happened? How did Crocky evolve? Alright, guess we're moving on then. Team Neoplasma shows up, but Trip and I are able to handle things pretty smoothly. We then continue on the route towards Driftvale City, where we meet back up with Bianca, who shows off hidden grottos to us. Honestly, I really miss hidden grottos, as they were really fun to go into and see whether you got something interesting or not. I'll actually do a hidden grotto hunt later on, but for now, let's just take the bridge over to everyone's favorite Unovan city. Driftvale City. Home of great music, a pretty cool gym leader, and... oh, right. Team Plasma.
Dude, calm down! No!
Well, we head over to the place where the old Team Plasma now resides. The current leader, Rud, battles us, but is defeated pretty handily by us. He then takes us inside, where Trip tries to interrogate him. But unfortunately for him, these guys aren't actually bad anymore. If they had Purloin, then his sister would have had it back by now. Rud then offers us a Zorua, which belonged to the former king of Team Plasma, and my favorite character, N. Sadly, Zorua will not be on the team. As much as I love Zorua, 3 dark types might be a little too much for our team. We do a bit more training to prepare for the gym before heading inside. This is a gym puzzle that I still tend to struggle with. Not only is it a maze, but it's also pretty much completely in the dark. I found myself running into multiple gym trainers, and even had to leave to heal at one point. Still, in the end I was able to begin my match with Clay. And I lost. Yep. Because apparently my Pokemon were outsped by Clay's, especially with the use of Bulldoze. In fact, I would lose in the rematch as well. Still, I felt so close in both attempts that I didn't feel like training in between, so I just went back in. They do say 3rd time's the charm after all. I got pretty lucky starting off, as Shogoro managed to one-shot Karakurok, and almost knocked out Sandslash as well. Clay heals, but assuming this would be the case, I chose to just use Water Pulse again. This time the move gets a higher damage roll, allowing for Sandslash to be taken out. Excadrill is out next, and things seem to be going well. Shogoro tanks a Metal Claw before getting some big damage with Water Pulse. Some of Excadrill's health is restored via Citrus Berry, but I wasn't too worried. Bulldoze did take out Shogoro, but I brought out Pidge right afterwards. I got some chip damage with Quick Attack before Pidge fainted due to a Rock Slide attack. That leaves us with only Crocky. Strangely, Excadrill goes for Rock Slide against us, and when it doesn't flinch, Crocky just burrows underground with Dig. Excadrill fails to use Slash while we're underground, so when Dig lands, it's all over. Definitely a difficult gym leader, but at least we were able to pull off the win in the end. The Quake Badge is ours. With our victory, Clay decides to have us test out a new attraction he's created. The Pokémon World Tournament. We register alongside Trip and even Charon. With the brackets set, the battles begin. We face Trip in the first round. Eclipse fights Servine for a while, but a few hits force us to switch to Pidge, who takes out Servine with Air Cutter. Simisear is up next, but Shoguro is able to take the monkey out, as well as Trip's own Tranquil. In the second round, we have another fight with Charon, who has managed to grow much stronger since the last time we saw him. In a pretty close fight, Eclipse is defeated by Stoutland. Pidge then finishes off the dog before losing to Cinccino because I accidentally clicked Air Cutter instead of Quick Attack. Shoguro and Watchog are the last ones out, but Shoguro easily beats them, giving us a spot in the finals. Our final opponent is Colress, who wants to see just how strong our bond with our Pokemon is. Unfortunately for us, we don't have type advantage against him. Eclipse is able to slowly ship down Magneton, but is defeated soon after. Shoguro is out next and gets paralyzed before we can take Magneton down. Shoguro is also eventually able to take out Clink and Elgyem, allowing us to take the win officially to become the victors of the Driftveil tournament. Unfortunately, we can't revel in our success as Team Neoplasm is back, and they have a frickin' boat! Trip, Charon, and I hop onto the boat, despite Colress telling us not to.
I'm sure that won't mean anything in the future.
And are almost instantly swarmed by Plasma Grunts, who we have to beat up if we want a chance to leave. Thankfully, with 3 of us working together, we're able to beat the Grunts no problem. It's then that the remaining sage of the team, Zinzalin, reveals himself. He won't give us the answers we seek, and so, to get rid of us, he has a trio of literal ninjas teleport us so the boat can disappear. Which, given the fact there was only a few seconds of darkness between for them to disappear in, either the boat is really fast, or the Shadow Triad just transported us to literal nothingness in order to buy some time for their escape. Or, the Cut to Black's time length isn't actually a proper representation of events, and it just skipped over us being teleported, the gangplank being taken away before we can get back on, and the boat leaving. I like my other suggestions better. Before we continue forward to the next gym, we head underground in order to meet plenty more Pokemon we don't have in the Pokedex yet. This includes a moth that people have used to replace the sun, which we caught without even damaging it that much. Now, given the fact that we've traveled about half the region, you'd think we'd probably seen a good amount of Pokemon, right? Wrong! We've only seen 90 Pokemon and still have 207 more to go, so we gotta keep moving. Luckily, we end up going to a research lab that gives us a free Deerling, before we head to one of my favorite locations in Unova, Chargestone Cave. I don't know, something about the floating electric blue rocks has always been fascinating to me. And no, it's not because of the electricity theme. Okay, maybe a little. Also, we saw a legendary Pokemon, I forgot to mention that. After the long trek, we finally make it to Mistralton City, where we meet the gym leader, Skyla, as well as meeting Professor Juniper for the first time in person. We used this time to add a few more Pokemon to our Pokedex, as both Magneton and Nosepass evolved in the Chargestone Cave. We also managed to evolve Pidge in the process, and so I was starting to feel a bit better about my chances in the upcoming gym. We rang the bell for good luck before we began our attempt on the Flying-type gym. Yeah, Skyla was absolutely not a pushover, and interestingly enough, having an unevolved Dewott wasn't helping my chances. However, I wasn't going to evolve Shoguro yet. He still hadn't learned Hydro Pump. I also decided not to train, because I'm very stubborn. So after multiple failed attempts, Eclipse was able to beat Swoobat and stall against Swanna for a while. Pidge ended up doing nothing because of a crit and a flinch from Swanna, and Shoguro was able to handle the rest of the fight. Honestly, I'm done with this gym. It took way too many attempts, and the gym puzzle sent me flying into solid metal and wooden boxes so much that I probably have permanent brain damage and multiple bruises. So I'm just going to take this jet badge and leave. Except I can't leave. Not until I double back to get the professor and take a plane to the other side of the region. Nah, I'm kidding. We made it in one piece. We continued looking for different Pokemon, only to end up in the Strange House. Inside, we find it to be overrun with ghosts, with one in particular actually having a pretty tragic backstory. Unfortunately for you, I ain't telling you it. Look it up if you want to know more. I'm just going to take this lunar wing and go. We head into Reversal Mountain, where we end up teaming up with Bianca to make our way through. As we work our way through, Crocky obtains his final form of Crocodile, before we make it to Undala Town. I went off to catch another member of my team, and found out that apparently wild Altaria actually spawn on their own. I was already planning on using Altaria, so skipping over Swablu wasn't really a problem. We managed to get a critical capture on it, and added Altered to the team. It was then that I learned that Altaria pretty much learns no good Dragon-type moves by level up, so we had to work with Dragon Breath until I could manage to get something better. It also meant that Dragon Dance had a little less usage than I would have liked, but there was nothing I could do about that now. We fought our rival and then began to work on completing more of the Pokédex. Route 13 had plenty of additional dex entries, however some did get a bit difficult to find. I was just trying to find a Lunatone, but wasn't having any luck for some reason. Then about half an hour into that recording session, something else popped up.
Yeah, Hydro Pump is 52. That's when he learns it. Okay. So that's the level I will get my Dewott to before I allow him to evolve.
Oh! Wow. Shiny Driftblim!
Nice.
What?
That's the fourth shiny found tonight.
And this is full odds too! What? Oh, I don't have Pokeballs for this. Dragon Breath, how much is that gonna do? Oh, I got the paralysis immediately. Let's go. One more attack, and then I can't hit it anymore. Okay, it's in the red, and it's paralyzed.
Now you just start chucking.
I have 4 balls, one of them being the Master Ball.
So you're guaranteed to catch it, though.
Yes, but I don't want to use the Master Ball. Doesn't matter, I got it.
Nice.
Yeah, Unova really does seem to love me, which is good, because I love it. We named the shiny Driftblim Zeppeli, however, while she was on the team for the time I decided whether I'd use her or not, spoiler alert, she will not stay on the team. Once we were able to find everything in the area, we continued forward and once again ran into Cobalion. Now, I really like Cobalion. It is absolutely my favorite out of the main Swords of Justice trio. So of course I caught this powerful legend and let it chill in the box for the rest of the adventure. We then learned about the other legends of the region, before fighting Zinzalin and another Plasma Grunt with the help from Trip. Not long after, we ended up finding Virizion, who I also caught before making it to Opelucid City, home of my second favorite gym leader of all time. I talked to Iris a little bit before immediately leaving the city in order to backtrack and collect a few Pokédex entries I wasn't able to get before. In the process of all this hunting, Shogoro finally grew to level 52 and learned Hydro Pump before evolving into Samurott. I did a bit of grinding for shards and then used them to teach Shogoro the move Superpower. With this, Shogoro was almost fully prepared. We just needed to get to the Giant Chasm and obtain the TM for Ice Beam. Unfortunately, we have to do that after fighting the Dragon Gym Leader. We rode the back of a dragon slowly, defeating trainer after trainer, before we were able to face the Gym Leader, the Spartan Mayor of Opelucid City, Drayden. The battle starts with Crocky up against Drayden's Druddigon. My main strategy was to make it difficult for Druddigon to hit Crocky with a Dragon Tail, or super effective Revenge, so I utilized Torment in order to keep Druddigon from using the same move twice. Afterwards, it only took a few more hits in order to take Druddigon down to red, before it was ultimately healed and able to knock Crocky out. Altered was up next, and I decided to take a few turns to set up Cotton Guard and Dragon Dance in hopes that Altered would be the one to handle this gym completely. Unfortunately, I somehow forgot about Dragon Tail and had to watch my efforts dissolve as Shogoro was brought out onto the battlefield. At least an Aqua Jet was able to take Druddigon out of the match. Flygon was brought out next, only for Shogoro to land a critical Hydro Pump and one-shot Flygon. Not what I was expecting, but I won't complain. However, the final opponent was going to be a little bit trickier. Another Hydro Pump is able to do over half to Haxorus, however, the Citrus Berry is able to recover a good amount of that, while the dragon sets up a D-Dance. Shogoro manages to outspeed and land another Hydro Pump, but it just barely isn't enough. However, Haxorus uses Dragon Tail and brings Altered back out. So with one final Dragon Breath, my newest member managed to outspeed and defeat Drayden's ace, earning us the Legend Badge. We've only got one more gym to beat. Before we can take on the final gym, Drayden brings us to his house in order to relay more information on what Team Neoplasma may be up to, telling us about the legendary Kyurem, as well as a treasure which Drayden's family has been passing down for generations, the DNA Splicers. However, we then witness a 3D flying pirate ship fire off a cannon, which freezes Opelucid City completely. Team Neoplasma is back. They're on the attack, and unfortunately Drayden can't even make the ice crack. If we want Team Neoplasma to leave, then we'll have to force them out of the city before they can get to the DNA Splicers. We battle around the city until it seems like the coast is clear, so Drayden shows us the true hiding place of the DNA Splicers. Unfortunately, they expected this, and so the DNA Splicers were stolen from us. We couldn't do anything to stop them from escaping with it. However, a new hope appears in Trip and Sharon. Sharon is able to easily figure out a potential hiding place of Team Neoplasma, being an area not too far from Humalao City, while Trip has already begun heading to it. So, we head through one of the coolest things in Unova, the Marine Tube, and make it to Humalao City. It isn't long before my favorite gym leader leaps from the watery depths to introduce himself. This is Marlin, the new strongest gym leader in Unova, having taken the 8th gym spot that used to belong to Drayden, or Iris if you played Pokemon White. This allows us to challenge the gym, but before we take the time to find one of the most important Pokemon to my playthrough, Corsola. Okay, look, Corsola might not seem all that special, but it happens to be one of the few Pokemon that isn't owned by a trainer within this entire game. Finding this thing was essential for my Dex challenge. Anyways, on to one of the best gym puzzles I've ever seen. After floating around an honestly beautiful gym, we can challenge Marlin to a fight. And I definitely did not lose any time before this attempt. The battle starts with Altered going against Caracosta. We try and get a lucky paralysis, but instead we get hit with a hard smackdown attack. We manage to crit on the second attempt, but there's still no paralysis before Altered gets taken down. We bring out Eclipse and immediately take Caracosta out with Feint Attack. Wailord is up next and allows us to use Screech a few times because the whale forgot. Unfortunately, Feint Attack just barely doesn't KO, resulting in Eclipse getting burned, and Marlin healing. However, Eclipse is able to pull through with 2 Feint Attacks, one being a crit and finishing off Wailord. The final Pokemon is Jellicent, who easily takes out our very much weakened Umbreon. It's all up to Pidge. Fly does do some big damage, but Cursed Body disables it. Seeing as we have no other options, Pidge stalls out the disable by going between Detect and Roost. Pidge then swoops in with Fly one final time, and that's our final badge claimed. We can take on the Pokemon League, but beating Team Neoplasma comes first. We quickly run over to the next route to find Colress and Terrakion. We catch it, and then head in the opposite direction to get to the Plasma Frigate. We go through the cave, only to find a Crustle blocking the way, one which just so happens to respond to a device Colress made that he happened to give to us. Huh. Well, I'll be. Well, bye Crustle. Trip and I make it to the Plasma Frigate, and Marlin helps us by bringing down the gangplank. This is the only thing he'll be doing for us, though, as Marlin is a firm believer that since they aren't currently affecting him, then he isn't going to get involved. Which, to each their own I suppose, but me personally, if I had an actual chance to stop a literal terrorist organization, I would at least try. Also, he alerted the people on board with his actions, so Marlin, you are very much involved in this now. Unfortunately, Marlin's mess is left up to Trip and I, as we battle our way through the frigate, teleporting all over the place until we can properly unlock the area containing Kyurem. We beat Zinzalin once again, but he just brings the ninjas in again to teleport us a mere few feet away from the boat, so we can watch it take flight like the Destiny's Bounty from LEGO Ninjago. Man, now I kinda wanna watch Ninjago again. I never truly finished the series. I'm getting off track. We gotta head to the giant chasm. We get to the chasm only to discover Team Neoplasma is already here. We quickly grab the TM for Ice Beam and teach it to Shogoro, before we head deeper into the chasm. There, we find more Team Neoplasma, but luckily, the old Team Plasma are also here to handle things. We hop aboard the ship and go through another puzzle in order to access the area they hold Kyurem in. Unable to free the legend, we defeat Zinzalin once more, before heading over to the bridge, where we meet Team Plasma's new king, Colress. Okay, this game is like almost 12 years old now. If you didn't know about Colress being part of Team Plasma by this point, that's on you. Of course, the battle against Colress begins. Crocky beats Magneton and almost takes out Magnezone before fainting. Eclipse is able to finish off Magnezone and buys some time for me to bring back Crocky before fainting. Crocky beats Kling Kling and Bayham. He's almost able to defeat Metang, but we aren't able to do enough and have to switch Altered in order to finish Metang off and win the fight. We then head to a separate room to find the man who is always behind everything within Team Plasma. Getsus's plan begins to unfold. Kyurem is transferred to the giant chasm, and Getsus leaves the Shadow Triad with us while he prepares to claim his throne as the new ruler of a frozen Unova. Trip appears, only to find out that one of the Shadow Triad was able to steal his sister's Purloin. We battle each of the Shadow Triad, and then once they're defeated, we head into another cave of the giant chasm, hoping we can stop Getsus once and for all. Getsus doesn't want to give us the chance to stop him, so he almost brutally murders us, before N arrives just in time. One extremely cool cutscene later, and now we have to fight the fusion of Kyurem and Zekrom. We do a lot of damage with Crocky, but he faints due to a freeze shock. However, with the amount of damage Crocky was able to do, Shogoro is able to finish things up with Hydro Pump. Getsus loses his cool, and so challenges us to a fight. Crocky takes out Cofagrigus, but not before being toxic poisoned. He gets in some good damage off of Seismitoad, but is unfortunately defeated. Altered comes out and finishes off Seismitoad, and manages to take out Hydreigon, before fainting to Eelektross. Eclipse finishes off Eelektross, but faints to Drapion. We then bring out Pidge, who manages to handle both Drapion and Toxicroak, in order to stop Getsus once and for all. At least until Black and White 3 are announced. With Kyurem stopped and Getsus needing therapy after that mental breakdown, we're able to move forward with the league. Except we only have 5 Pokemon on our team. Thankfully, Best Boy N gives us the HM for Waterfall, which allows us to go to the Abundant Shrine. This place is more specifically related to the forces of nature, but we're here for something different. In one of the hidden grottos, there's a 1% chance to get a Vulpix with the hidden ability Drought. For any fan of Vulpix, this is a godsend of an improvement and takes Ninetales from a decent Pokemon to a top tier competitor. Though with it being 1% chance, it'll probably take us a while.
Wait a minute.
Wait, no way! No way! Vulpix! Yo! actually got it. That was after 12 minutes and 22 seconds. Welcome Firefox to the team! Now for the league. We do a bit of prep to get Firefox a proper moveset and evolve into Ninetales, before we head back over to begin the trek through Victory Road. Going from point A to point B has made Victory Road seem a bit smaller than it really is. But this time we actually did a bit more exploring in order to work on the Pokédex more. However, once we were at the end, we still had one last challenge. Trip. Our rival since the very beginning. He wanted one last fight before we continued to the league. He put up a great fight, having added Bouffalant to his usual squad of Unpheasant, Simisear, and Serperior. Unfortunately, he was not given a full team, so that gave us an advantage with the numbers. Even without that, our main partner Shoguro was more than strong enough to handle things on his own. So with our rival wishing us well, we head to the Unova League. The first Elite Four member we face is the ghostly author Chantal. Due to an unfortunate burn, Eclipse is just barely unable to defeat Cofagrigus, but Crocky is able to put up the KO. He gets a good few hits on Chandelure before being taken out. Shoguro comes in and finishes things, though unfortunately Flame Body does cause another burn. An Ice Beam is then able to take out Drifblim, while a Hydro Pump takes out Golurk. Grimsley, my favorite Elite Four member, is up next. After a fake out from Liepard, we take it out with Superpower. Hydro Pump takes out Crocodile before we switch to Altered. Unfortunately, Scrafty is able to take him out, but this gives us a free switch into Pidge, who finishes things off. We get in a few more hits once Bisharp is brought out, but we end things with Firefox. The third member is Caitlyn, who could be considered one of the stronger members of the Unova Elite Four, given she was the head of the Battle Castle in Sinnoh at one time, though she was never a beatable trainer up until Generation 5, as Dirac was the real battler in the Sinnoh frontier. Crocky takes out Musharna, but falls asleep due to yawn. When Reuniclus comes out, we switch to Pidge. We bring Reuniclus down to half before being defeated. Altered is out next and is able to take out Reuniclus after setting up a few Dragon Dances. Altered is able to do plenty of damage, but is ultimately taken out by Sigilyph. Eclipse comes out to finish things off, taking out Sigilyph, and the final Gothitelle. The final Elite Four member is the one who usually gives me the most trouble. Considered as Alder's disciple, at least by himself, Marshall is our final challenge before the champion. Pidge is able to take out Throw before falling to Conkeldur's Stone Edge. Firefox comes out and defeats Conkeldurr. He takes out Sawk next thanks to an additional burn from Flamethrower, which made Payback unable to do much to Firefox. Mienshao unfortunately ends things for Firefox, but Altered is able to come out. After a long fight, Mienshao is brought down. So this brings us to the final challenge of the league. With the Elite Four defeated, the only one standing in the way of the title is the current champion, Iris. The battle starts with Pidge taking on Hydreigon. We immediately switched into Crocky as we were hoping Hydreigon would use Thunderbolt, but Iris somehow predicted this and went for Dragon Pulse, which did enough to allow Surf to finish us off in the next turn. Firefox comes out next, but almost gets taken out by Hydreigon. Altered tries a few things, but since Iris is using items, we don't get the win. Hydreigon is brought down to red, but not defeated. Luckily, Pidge is able to come back out and finish off Hydreigon. Lapras is out next, and despite the disadvantage, Pidge was able to do a lot of damage before being taken down. Eclipse then comes out and finishes things off. Druddigon is then brought out, and we get very lucky while trying to heal up with Moonlight, though after setting up Screech, we are forced out with Dragon Tail. Firefox is brought out and manages to outspeed for a Will-O-Wisp, avoid a Focus Blast, and get some turns of stalling Druddigon out before losing Ninetales. Eclipse then comes out to finish things off. It's at this point that Iris completely stops messing around, as her ace is brought out immediately after the loss of Druddigon. We barely live an X-Scissor and get off a Screech before fainting to an Earthquake. This leaves us with only Shogoro left. We take out Haxorus with an Ice Beam, as well as her Aggron with a superpower. Her final Pokemon is Archeops, and with one final Hydro Pump, we are able to claim the title of Unova League Champion. After the credits roll, we head straight into the post-game content. And oh boy, is there a lot of content here. We spent a good amount of time working on the Pokédex, while traveling through the parts of Unova we originally didn't get into visiting. In Pinwheel Forest, we reunite with Sharon, and ultimately work together to find the former sage Gorm. He explains that he does not intend to fight us, and had merely been spending the past few years within the forest. As he leaves, Sharon wonders what Gorm's life would be like had Getsus not been in it. We do a lot of Pokemon catching, breeding, and evolving in order to get the Pokédex built up. By the time we reach New Vema Town, we've almost finished the dex. We do some backtracking to improve Alter's moveset, while also getting some other dex entries along the way. Within a few more hours of grinding, we finally completed the Pokédex. With all 297 required Pokemon having been seen, we can go visit Professor Juniper. She thanks us for our work, and gives us the ability to go to a distant place known as the Nature Preserve. There, we find one of the other goals, which originally I thought would be the last we'd complete. With a Luxury Ball, we capture the Shiny Haxorus, who I named Haxus, after a legendary Pokemon I came up with in the 4th grade, which was meant to be a distant relative/mutated version of Haxorus. Think of it like the relationship between Carbink and Diancie. With a new member added to the team, I decided to do a bit more prep. Doing a bit of shard farming, I was able to get enough to finalize Alter's moveset, before moving on to EV training Haxus. However, as I worked, I began to think that I may need some other members. My team, at least for the most part, was improperly built for these more difficult battles I was going to be taking on. So I decided to head to Pinwheel Forest, in order to begin prep for a new team member, Pansage. I know a lot of people really dislike the elemental monkeys, but personally I've always liked Pansage. When I first got into Pokemon, Simisage was my favorite grass type, and things stayed that way until Decidueye was introduced. So I caught a Pansage, and then bred one to have a timid nature with the proper IVs to have the rock-type version of Hidden Power. We named him Elvis, and then went searching for another team member. We ended up finding it off camera.
Okay. I have a new team member. This here Bagon is joining us for the adventure. Unfortunately, the point in which I caught this Bagon, I lost that footage, so that's fun.
After adding our 3rd dragon type to our roster, we got to work on final preparations. It took a few hours, but eventually I was able to get the proper EV training done and the movesets finalized. Once everything was taken care of, I entered the Black Tower and began climbing to the top. Believe it or not, I had never done the Black Tower when I was little, but it was honestly a very interesting challenge. 10 randomly generated areas, each filled with trainers who give hints to the location of the boss of the floor. Taking on these battles ranged from smooth sailing and being able to sweep with either Shogoro, Haxus, or Bahamut, to somewhat tedious and unhelpful as you aren't allowed to heal apart from when you're able to find the doctor of the area. Still, many of those fights also allowed other members of the team to get some shine. When we finally reached the gate at the end of Area 10, we were given the chance to fight Benga. He starts off with my favorite legendary Pokemon, Latios. Haxus managed to take it out with a super effective Dual Chop, so he brings out Garchomp next. We managed to outspeed and take Garchomp out with another Dual Chop. Benga's final Pokemon was Volcarona. Like grandfather, like grandson, I suppose. We strike with Outrage, but it hangs on with Focus Sash and uses Quiver Dance. Despite this, we managed to outspeed and end things with a final Outrage. With this, we've managed to complete the Black Tower Challenge. Another goal of mine is to complete, with a shiny Gibble as a reward. This means there's only one thing left to do. The Pokémon World Tournament is probably my favorite part of the post-game content. With every single important trainer,
except Iris, Elite Four members, and Frontier Brains,
from every single region we knew all coming together at this one point in the game. It truly made Pokémon Black 2 and White 2 feel like the culmination of all the work Pokémon had done up to this point. You could battle the gym leaders from Unova, Kanto, Johto, Hoenn, and Sinnoh. They even put in a tournament which would randomly select 7 gym leaders from all regions. Of course, the greatest part of it is what happens after you beat every leaders tournament, and then win the World Leaders one a total of 10 times. The Champions Tournament. This is what I've been working towards. In this tournament, we can face any of the champions of the other regions. I knew I wanted to win this one, so I entered with Shogoro, Haxorus, and Bahamut as my team of 3. With that, it began. Our first round was against Blue. Bahamut went up against Arcanine. We went for Earthquake, but were unable to kill before being burned by Flare Blitz. However, we were able to still finish things off with another Choice Scarfed Earthquake. Aerodactyl came out next, forcing us to switch to Shogoro. Aerodactyl almost took us out with a single Stone Edge, but we managed to hang in there, avoid the next one, and end it with Ice Beam. Blue's final choice is Gyarados, who lowered her attack with Intimidate. We tried to get lucky, but Gyarados ended things with a Waterfall. Given the fact Bahamut was on low health, we immediately went for Haxorus. Both Pokemon clashed with Outrage, and Haxorus only barely lost out in the end. Luckily, Gyarados was weak, and we were faster, so one final Outrage finished the battle off. Round 2 had us up against my second favorite champion, Alder. Because yeah, apparently Alder beat Cynthia, and y'all were thinking she was the strongest champion. Anyways, the battle started with Alder sending out his ace, Volcarona. Bahamut led off with Outrage, and this moth wasn't wearing a Focus Sash like the last one, meaning that was already one Pokemon down. Crocodile was brought out next, but another Outrage was able to end things thanks to the Moxie boost we had already gotten. That left him with Braviary. But if one Moxie boost was enough to beat Crocodile, then 2 were definitely going to take down this brave bird. Sorry, Alder. You're an amazing character, and the full roster given to you in the PWT is definitely your best team to date. Still, only one of us Unova champions could win this round. With Alder defeated, I only had one obstacle in my way. The one and only. The same trainer I needed to beat before this Unova adventure could be considered complete. Red. We entered the stage to the cheers of onlookers, before my final battle began. Red started off with his trusted Venusaur. Bahamut went for Fire Blast, but the Grass Frog tanked the hit, before countering with a powerful Sludge Bomb, poisoning my pseudo-legendary in the process. We went for another Fire Blast, and this one was able to pick up the KO. The next Pokemon was another tank, and my personal least favorite Pokemon, Blastoise. Figuring Bahamut wouldn't be able to help us later on, we decided to go for a final Fire Blast, which paid off with a burn. Bahamut was brought down afterwards, but his efforts were not in vain. Haxorus held the field, and while dodging a Focus Blast, set up with Dragon Dance. Outrage followed suit, and Blastoise was defeated. So that left Red with one last Pokemon, Lapras. We were at a disadvantage, but Haxorus still gave it her all. One final Outrage, and victory was ours. Thus ends my Unova journey, which clocked in at a final 116 hours and 1 minute. It was such a fun experience going back through Unova. I actually decided to replay this at a very hard point in my personal life, and while it didn't help fully get back to normal, getting to travel through the game that started it all for me, and even getting to do the things I never managed to while I was little. This adventure was nostalgic, and a bit therapeutic. I definitely call Shogoro the ace of my team, though Haxorus, Bahamut, and even Pidge were also extremely helpful members as well. While my Unova journey might be done though, I'm not done traveling the Pokemon world. I got to face my favorite opponents in the Champion tournament. But one of those champions may be someone we see again. That's for later. For now, I would like to thank you all for watching this little passion project of mine. I really hope you enjoyed it, so be sure to leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you did. With that all being said, I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!